Greetings, humans! Zbot1496 here, coming to you from Zogplex with our spoiler-free review of a human rectangular entertainment form streaming on Amazon Prime, Fallout Season 1. Now, here's a satire with some bite to it. Science fiction has become humanity's go-to mechanism for introspection and self-critique, and Fallout goes for the trifecta. The show absolutely skewers self-righteous nationalism, unchecked capitalism, and the inescapable brutality of tribalism. Honestly, our lovely humans, you're not that bad. You're way too hard on yourselves when you look in the mirror. We mean there's some truth to it. It wouldn't resonate if there weren't. But satire generally, and Fallout in particular, is more of a funhouse mirror that exaggerates to make the point. It's not that nobody's looking that closely, which is kind of true. Most of the galaxy hasn't got the time. But that's why we are here, to shine that light on our favorite little species and point out how refreshing a flash of self-awareness can be. But on that point, the show is not subtle about how it makes its points, and neither is the casual violence that permeates the experience. But we have to admit, this all lands well, because the two main characters are worth it. But first, some context. The show launched on Amazon Prime on April 11th, 2024, but is actually based on a hit video game series of the same name. The original Fallout game was created by Tim Kaine and Leonard Boyarsky at Interplay Entertainment's Black Isle Studios and released in 1997. It was a top-down, turn-based role-playing game that set all the key elements of the story in motion. By 2008, Bethesda Game Studios owned the rights and released a more modern 3D sequel, Fallout 3, with several additional games following under the creative direction of studio CEO Todd Howard. The games set up the world as a post-apocalyptic future following a nuclear war, where the surface dwellers were largely lawless gangs and nuclear mutations, while you play the role of a vault dweller emerging from your shelter with 1950s-style retro-futuristic tech to play out adventures on the surface. The games have mostly been blockbuster hits, and according to our Zogplex colleague Beep 2077, who has ingested the entire game series into their dataset, the games are fantastic to play. Now, in terms of adapting this hit game series to Amazon Prime Video, the Fallout TV series is created by Graham Wagner and Geneva Robertson Dorette and produced by Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy. Nolan and Joy had recently produced the fantastic Westworld television show, and Nolan had co-written several films with his brother Christopher Nolan, including the excellent Interstellar. This team gave us a certain degree of reassurance that the 8 episodes would be worth our time. Now, in adapting the game series, the showrunners bring the premise, the factions, and the tech, such as this Pip-Boy, and all of that tech through to the show. They take the added step of crafting an original storyline for the show that develops the origins of the 1950s-style Vault Tech company and props, and a narrative that ties all of those elements together. We get 2 proxies to help us understand the world and the story. First, a young Vault dweller, Lucy McLean, played by Ella Purnell, breaking out of Vault 33 on a personal mission, and Cooper Howard / the Ghoul, played by Walton Goggins, as a half-human, half-zombie mutation who has a quick wit and a quick draw. And yet, neither character is exactly what they seem. As surreal as they are to start, both show very familiar notes of disillusionment and bitter regret in different ways, while helping us see our way through the interconnected stories of the world. And what a vivid world this is! There is a genuine resonance to this world, proven as it is through a hit series of games, but it's worth spending a moment to understand why it works. We've seen the post-nuclear apocalypse in the Mad Max series, the Terminator series. Even your most positive utopian science fiction, like Star Trek, starts its chronology with a nuclear war. And this trend only seems to be accelerating, with shows like the brutal Station 11, the excellent The Last of Us, another adaptation from a proven video game series, and the gripping Silo, adapted from the novel Wall, also about an underground fallout shelter with its own revisionist history and ideas about the surface. You all have some anxiety about this apocalypse. And having gathered data in the 1970s and 1980s, we do understand the existential tension that permeated the collective consciousness. Schools had nuclear bomb drills where children were told to duck and cover to avoid nuclear bombs. This sort of thing doesn't happen as much. You now have shooter drills, which doesn't seem much better, but living with that nuclear threat created this ever-present outcome of a post-apocalyptic future. In contrast with that threat, Fallout has a buoyant goofiness, inflated by its gee-whiz 1950s dialogue and naivete of the vault dwellers emerging into a new reality. That buoyant goofiness becomes literal with the power armor suits. Their bulbous appearance and menacing weight in close quarters, this is the helmet, transforms into this kind of floaty ballet in actual combat, like the hippo ballerinas from Fantasia. Now, underscored by carefree 1950s style ballads and presented in slow motion with guttural machine gun fire and gouts of blood flying from severed limbs and heads, the brutality is presented as literal farce. The violence as art seems to be threaded through as a way to offset the brutality and dehumanization of actual people. That dehumanization is present in the satire of corporate capitalist thinking that sees humans as expendable for a greater corporate monetary incentive, as seen in the masterful Alien, Brazil, and RoboCop. Corporate indifference and the profit motive are presented as one of the greatest drivers for one of showing inhumanity to humankind. And that is present in this show. The more unique element in play here, though, is the retro-futuristic visualization. Along with this existential fear, the nuclear age was permeated by a playful, liberating undercurrent of rounded and fantastical technology. From cartoons like The Jetsons, to films like Forbidden Planet, to theme park worlds like Disneyland's Tomorrowland, there was this magical idea of a future where labor, hardship, and inconvenience had been solved by technology. This is a wonderfully attractive idea. If sadly untrue, believe us, we've seen it and lived it. You have to put in the work to grow. It won't happen just through technology. The civilizations that make it to the galactic community are the ones that figure that out. But that doesn't mean that the dream isn't worthwhile. We appreciate those visions that show that there is a choice in front of you. We really hope you get your act together there, by the way. We're rooting for you. But on point for this note, the retro future of magical gadgetry and the extraordinary healing powers of stim packs reflect this outsized optimism of modern advancements and allows that thread of unbridled optimism to intersect with the deep pessimism of the inevitability of total war. And the show absolutely goes there too. It may be the central theme of both the game series and the TV series that even after the war to end all wars, factions will arise and battle each other again. War never changes, is the quote from the game. And maybe it doesn't. But then, maybe there's room to challenge it. Absolute statements have a way of breaking down when relatable characters choose to defy them. In this case, Lucy and Cooper deliver. They are continually tested, and even against each other, but more importantly, they feel like a sort of us. Of course, we are not literally vault dwellers and ghouls, but we can relate to fragments of their stories. We can relate to what extremes have pushed them to. And on a fundamental level, they are exemplifying that classic screenwriting tenet of show, don't tell. We see their conflicts and stories. We are with them as they confront and respond. For a show with deep world building, there is surprisingly little expository narration. We learn what is happening by seeing it. And when the guides are as compelling as these two are, that helps mask the weaker storylines, like Maximus's journey with the Brotherhood of Steel and the unclear plotting of the quest that sets all the characters in motion in the first place. All while the show is weirdly, graphically violent, seemingly to keep us on edge, it's also the tension and pending doom over the two leads that actually keeps bringing us to that next episode. So, let us provide our contextual assessment of Fallout Season 1. Given the show's compelling main characters guiding us through a wondrous allegorical world, despite some flat supporting plot threads, we give the show our high positive rating. And so concludes this human version of our review. If you have feedback on it, please write in your comments so that we can upload the galactic version to Zogplex. You can expect more reviews of streaming shows, theatrical movies, and 4K home video releases as we continue to engage with your human rectangular content. So please watch, like, subscribe, and comment so that we can continue to have the human voice reflected in the cosmos. Until next time, farewell, humans.